frequently, at cost to herself, stood up to big tech, and she joins us tonight. Harmeet, thank you very much for coming on tonight. So this, again, as I just said, Mr. Epstein, yet another example of evidence from within this company, and there are other examples like it from Facebook, that show that they're not on the level, that they're lying to us, and that they could undermine the very basis of our democracy. Let me ask you the same question. Why is Congress standing by in the face of this evidence and doing nothing?
Let me add to that. Why is the Department of Justice not opening up antitrust investigations?
Well, exactly.
Why is the Federal Trade Commission not investigating them for their deceptive trade practices and failure to disclose their manipulation of data and theft of data from Americans and others? So today itself, the European Union opened up its fourth in the last 2 years investigation into Google for antitrust issues for manipulating search. Guess what? And so far they've been fined $7.1 billion in Europe in the last 17 months, but Zippo here in the United States on the same issues. And one of the reasons, Tucker, is that these companies, both of them, are very adept at spreading money around Capitol Hill, including through the use of a former Republican Congresswoman, Susan Molinari. And those are their lobbyists, and they're very effective. That's why you see legislators backing off for the most part. But we are talking about fascistic, control of our data in a way that is perceived as benevolent certainly by liberals, and is not being criticized at all by the right. I think it's a very dangerous situation.
So, but what's the point? I mean, just as a macro question, what's the point of having a government, of sending half your income every year to Washington, if they won't protect you from the most basic and obvious threat to our entire system, which is these companies? Like, why do we have a government if they won't stand up to Google and Facebook?
Well, interestingly, I think we're going to see some action on the part of these companies, against these companies, I should say, in the new Congress, because liberals are concerned about the data theft, much more so than conservatives are. But we're still not going to see anything about this bias in terms of viewpoint. In addition to what you've covered on your segment tonight so far, obviously there's suppression of YouTube videos on an ideological basis. Google also discourages its advertisers from advertising on conservative platforms like Breitbart and others. Google's search engine has labeled the California Republican Party as having Nazi ideology and Republican women as being enablers. It is the most despicable, defamatory work, and it is all protected by the Communications Decency Act, which members of Congress certainly could edit and change, but they don't. And so I'm very disappointed in our government, our conservative government, frankly, in Washington on its failure to act on these issues.
So as you just pointed out very quickly, these companies operate in the way that they do very profitably because they have a special exemption from the Congress, which could revoke that exemption because they're not platforms, they're media companies. Of course, they're editing. Name just, if you would, since we're live now, 3 or 4 members of Congress who, might lead the charge against this.
Well, I guess I don't think any members of Congress currently have identified themselves as being hostile to this, but, Jim Jordan certainly seems to be somebody who's familiar with these issues. Matt Gaetz is another. I think these guys are sensitive to these issues, and I don't think they're beholden to big tech. Maybe they haven't been there long enough to have that sink in yet. But we have had senators. Mike Lee, for example, has looked at the antitrust situation and then backed off. I'd like to see our Senate, newly constituted with more votes, take a hard look at this, have some hearings, really put them on the spot.
Yeah.
Sundar Pichai is going to be testifying in Congress next week. I have suggested that definitely some hard questions need to be asked, and I know that there's an intention to ask some hard questions.
Well, I hope that happens.
So we'll see what happens.
Hope they get moving. Harmeet Dillon, you've been brave on this question. We're grateful for it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.